And now we have the section of book launch. Let me show you the book cover of 10 Crises. 550 pages. Thank you. Congratulations to Professor Wen. And it is an open access book that only 2 hours ago, we just upload to the Global U website, the reader page. So it's a free download. It is really a common good, public good. Let me briefly introduce the gist of that book. 10 Crises systematically traces the economic history of China from 1949 to 2020, unraveling the complex domestic and global factors leading to the cyclical crisis identified by Professor Wen and his research team, and examining the corresponding counteracting policy and measures by the government to resolve or defer the crisis. The book offers profound insights into China's endeavors and predicaments on the path of modernization and contemplates opportunities and lessons for the forging of alternative trajectories, not only for China, but also for the global South, to reconstruct rural communities for integrated cooperation and governance, and to revitalize ecological civilization. 10 Crises is a collective endeavor, the culmination of over 12 years of research, discussion, translation, and writing. This book is authored by Professor WEN Tiejun. The first 9 crises were mostly drafted and written in Chinese, in which Professor Dong Xiaodan and others have contributed. Then Dr. Erebus Wong and Ms. Alice Chan rendered them into English. The 10th crisis was drafted in English by Dr. Erebus Wong based on multiple sections of discussion of the research team. Dr. Tongyi, Gao Tongyi, Xu Tongyi have helped with copy editing. Now we would like to invite 3 speakers to say some words about the book. The first one is Mr. Jacob Dreyer. He is a commissioning editor of books about economics and policy in Asia for Palgrave Macmillan. He also writes essays and analyses on urban space and architecture for English and Chinese language media. We would like to thank him for facilitating the publication of this book with Palgrave Macmillan. We did a pre-recording of his speech, so our team will play his speech.
My name is Jacob Dreyer. I'm the senior editor for business, economics, politics, and law for Palgrave Macmillan, sitting in Shanghai. And I'm very excited to announce the publication of Dr. WEN Tiejun's book, 10 Crises, with our open access style. Dr. Wen's research has been really well known in China for a very long time, but because some of it hasn't been as well translated into English, he hasn't gotten as much attention in the English language as he perhaps should have. And that's one of the reasons that we're very excited to publish it. But the thing that I'm really excited about in the context of this South-South conference is that because we're publishing this book as open access, that means scholars and researchers all around the world can download the work for free, even if they don't have access to rich, typically global North institutions, which can afford to buy academic books. So I wish everyone a wonderful conference, and I'm recommend to everyone to check out our website and download the PDF of Dr. Wen's book. You'll find it for free, so that the research can be broadly shared all around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the second speaker will be Professor Lau Qingqi. Professor Lau has taught in Lingnan University for 34 years, first in translation and then in cultural studies. She is currently coordinator of program on cultures of sustainability, Center for Cultural Research and Development, Lingnan University. She is also director of the executive of the Global University for Sustainability. She has been involved in the rural reconstruction movement in China for over 2 decades, and she is also board member of Peace Women across the globe. Please, Professor Lau.
Well, thank you. I'm very glad to be seeing many old friends here, and we have to stress that well, this is a collective effort because there have been a lot of inputs, and you can find maybe two or three dozens of names that we have listed in the preface to acknowledge all those who have well, their inputs in this endeavor. But of course, Professor Wen is always our leader. And so we have been very privileged to be learning a lot from him in all these years. So, and I remember it was the first time our team in Hong Kong met with Professor Wen was when we invited him to Hong Kong for a conference to discuss the challenges facing China with the accession to the WTO. And that was the year 1999. And since then, there had been a lot of interactions also among scholars from Hong Kong and mainland China, and also with scholars from Asia, most of them being from the Asian Regional Exchange for New Alternatives. And last night, actually, we had quite a interesting debate. I think some of you who have missed it, then you could wait for a while before we upload the discussions and the debate online. The discussion last night was between Professor Wang Hui, Huang Ping, Professor Dai Jinghua, and Professor Wen Tiejun. So the key debate was that this dilemma between the apparent, the seemingly inevitable need for developing countries or for countries on the periphery to develop according to the model of the core, that is and simply put, is the Eurocentric mode of development, so that they could resolve the problems of poverty, so-called underdevelopment, etc. But then at the same time, then we have seen all the consequences, and which are manifested not really so much in China, but then much more apparently in other countries. So even in the former Soviet Union, we now see that it has turned into a country mostly for exporting its resources. So so last night, actually, the debate was, if we look at the 100 years of China's development, we see a lot of achievements in terms of poverty alleviation, in terms of the general rise in this living standard. But at the same time, we also see a lot of problems, a lot of contradictions. And so we cannot sometimes, I think, talk of one China where it is about either development or progress or backwardness, because we see manifestations of a very complex situations in different parts. So for example, last night, Professor Huang Ping talked about his experiences in some of the regions in China where there have been more concern and focus on ecological practices. And Professor Wang Hui also mentioned that. So I think this debate, it is not only within China, it is also for the whole global South, whether these are the countries which are on the semi-periphery or on the periphery, or in the term of the United Nations, the so-called least developed countries. So, so I think, well, when we look at the experience of China, it is also something that we would want to also contribute to the debates about possibilities for alternative paradigms, alternative paths, which do not necessarily have to be capitalist. So, well, we have had these discussions ever with Professor Wen. It was since 1999, but then actually with Professor Huang Ping and WEN Tiejun, with Huang Ping and Wang Hui and Professor Dai Jinghua, we actually started in the mid-90s. So, when we well, co-edited the series, which is called the Cultural and Social Translation Series, where we discussed questions about development, about well, nation building, about feminism, about subaltern studies. And so in the year 2003, Huang Ping and I co-edited a book called China Reflected, which was in English, and it was a collection of essays written by Professor Wen, Professor Dai, Professor Wang, and many others, and in which we were trying to think what kind of possibilities are there, because we recognize that there are a lot of contingencies and uncertainties, and China's development would hinge on a lot of both domestic and also the global contexts. So and so that has started all these discussions. And since the year 2011, when we started the comparative study of 7 emerging countries, and of which China was one, and we actually published the book this in Chinese at the beginning of this year, and it has already sold 100,000 copies in China in Chinese, and we are thinking of translating that into English. But then if we look at this, then we see the kind of plight we are all in. It's not only the global south, it's also the global north, and very often the costs are transferred from the global north, especially from the United States, to the other countries on the semi-periphery and the periphery. So in a way, we the kind of catastrophes that we are caught in today demand that we take a look at the development, but also try to look for alternatives that are already being practiced in different parts, especially among the rural, and which is why we also put a lot of emphasis on the rural reconstruction movement. And so for this book, the 10 Crises, we have been when we were first planning this book, it was in the year when we were trying to translate the 8 crises into English, and so that was the year 2013. But then, because of various reasons, we couldn't finish with the translation, and so that also offered us an opportunity to be discussing the situation and following the situation in China from 2013 to up to well, last year, and actually up to today. So we have been having these discussions, and so that is why the current book, it is not the 8 crises, but then it is the 10 crises. So the first crisis in Chinese, it is a whole book about delinking, and that was the transition from the Kuomintang era to the Communist Party's regime in that period. But then for the 10th crisis, actually, we had a lot of discussions, and the discussions are still ongoing. But because we wanted to produce this book, so we had stopped talking about the situation for last year. And so the current situation, as we all know, it is still very volatile. China has become, well, from being the secondary rival to the United States to becoming the main rival. And so in that sense, we see that the new Cold War is still unfolding. So we actually have another Chinese book being written now, which is about to be finished by the end of this month, which is about the new Cold War. So what I'm trying to say is that it is through these different intellectual projects, of which the 10 Crises is one of them, we try to grope our way and to try to see how China has to grapple with its own domestic situation while at the same time dealing with the external situations. So now there's this idea of the double circulation. So if China could domestically shift the focus to an ecological civilization, and internationally shift its alliance building and its friendship building with the countries of the periphery and also the semi-periphery, and in this changing international context, then we can also see a lot of hope, and which is also why for this current forum, we have named we have tried to focus the debate on the politics of hope. And I would lastly, I would like to mention that with Professor Wen, and we have been working on the rural reconstruction movement for over 20 years. And although this is not very much mentioned in the 10 Crises, the practical work on the ground, being with the peasants, being with the villages, with our focus on the question of agriculture. So that is something that is also the that is something that informs our analysis of the more macro views about the political economy in China. So thank you again, and we hope we will be producing more books, not only in Chinese but also in English, for you to be for all of you to be able to come in and also give your inputs. And we believe that we need all these concerted efforts to be talking to each other, dialoguing with each other, and debating, so that we can nurture more hope for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, before we close the session, we invite again Professor Wen to say something. Wen 老师.
Thank you. And thank you again. I first need to very warmly welcome you to join our discussion because it's a long-term debate, not only for Chinese featured experiences, but also for the current situation globally. We all know that nowadays the global capitalization meet the serious crisis, that is the global capital surplus. From last century overproduction. At that time, the whole world in the era of industrialization. And from that time to nowadays, just 100 years passed. And from overproduction, now turn to the capital surplus. As a capital surplus is more dangerous because it's not only turned to the high inflation in raw materials, in food markets, or in the oil energy markets, but also caused by this high inflation to make a lot of developing countries, a marginalized population became more poor, from poor to more poor. Many people died in famine. It's more bigger than the COVID-19. So when you know the information about the American politician want to punish the COVID-19 whatever, they need, I mean, the people also need to think about to punish this maker who made the inflation. So it's because of the large amount of this bubble money, this financial bubble, that's a flow into the food markets, the grain markets, to make the high grain price most attacked these poor people, these low income people. So such kind of the situation make almost all of people need to aware what is the order, what is the regulation. So when we finish our work in writing this book, I mean, during our discussions, we are very much concerned about this nowadays, the global crisis caused by the global capital surplus. So not only global, but also China. Now, these days, I joined some closed-door meeting talking about nowadays the global capital surplus turning to Chinese capital surplus. It's the same things, because that large number of these financial capital now flowed into China because China want to more open to this global financial capital. So nowadays, the whole human beings, the whole human facing the same challenge. So we need to do more studies, and then to give more explanations to our people, to make our people aware what is the real crisis. How can we protect ourselves? How can we prevent the human from such kind of disaster? Not only the human. Our theory to shows that if the marginalized population, these poor people cannot stand, they will transfer this cost, this institutional cost, this crisis into the nature, into the environment. So the environment cannot speak out. So the whole nature beings, not only the human beings, but the whole nature beings will all harmed by such kind of global capital surplus crisis. So I do want to say that we pray the peace. We turning ourselves from now on, turn ourselves from the global capitalization to the global ecological civilization. So that is my words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Wen. And now we have two things. One, because we have friend from Ecuador, Victor Huron. He has some technical problem and he can't speak out through his computer. So I will speak out his message. It seems very important to me that Professor Wen points out the decisive role of peasant population in sustainable development. At this time, participation in public management to prepare general state budgets is vital for the peasant population and to counteract the marginalization of neoliberal governments in southern countries subjected to global financial capital. Yeah, we can see Hugo on the screen, but there is some problem, technical problem. He can't speak out.
The core countries, the Western country, find it very difficult to deal with the COVID situation. So they have recourse to this oversupply of capital. They have no other way because of the rule, because of the law of the financial capitalism. We can find that the market in energy, future markets, in resources market, and food market, all are now experiencing inflation, and the inflations are going worse, and that will threaten all these poor people in the global south. We can see that now every day, those who die from hunger, actually the number of people who die from hunger are more than who die from COVID. If we really have to blame for the cause of the crime, then the bigger crime now is not COVID, and now the crime is who produced this hyperinflation, threatening the survival of the people. So now in China, we found that this oversupply of international financial capital is now swarming into China. So the oversupply of financial capital in China and the world actually go hand in hand. So that's why this book should be a useful tool for us to analyze our current situation facing the global financial capitalism. So that's how we can shift our analysis from the analysis of the industrial capitalism to financial capitalism, which is a kind of advancement for us. So now we should shift from the capitalist civilization to the ecological civilization. That's what I want to express. Thank you very much.
Professor Wen. And now we close this dialogue. Thank you very much.